Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So here's a new deck profile for you guys today. This time's on Fire Kings. So we just got the Fire Kings structure deck, and let me say that there's a lot of good cards in this structure deck. Not just reprints, but a lot of the new Fire King support is just excellent. And funny enough, you can actually play this deck in several different ways. I think the most popular build is going to be the Sinful Spoil Engine package, with the Bellstar, being one of the key cards that you can play. But keep in mind there are other alternatives to playing that if you don't have access to that engine. I don't have that engine myself, so I'm not going to be playing the Sinful Spoil cards. So when I do build up my competitive build, it's most likely going to be the Tri-Brigade build, since I have seen the Dogmatica build. I like that one too. But between the two, I like the Tri-Brigade one a little bit more simply because of its aggressive playstyle. So I think that's going to be the build I'm going to be leaning towards. But, if y'all guys want me to, I could always do two different deck profiles, one Dogmatica package and one Tri-Brigade, and so forth, But for right now, this is just going to be the budget deck profile. So as per usual, I'm only using cards that were available within the structure deck. So, like, you can literally just buy 3 structure decks, and you actually already have a competitive deck just like that. And actually, like I said, this deck can do a lot of cool things. So definitely don't underestimate this deck, because again, I've seen some of the combos and they are insane. But anyway, let me go and get things started. So the thing about the Fire Kings is that they're pretty gimmicky, well, they have a gimmick where they can essentially pop themselves, and just to get like some additional value, where usually to special summon another monster, or just like, get an additional effect. But yeah, like the Fire Kings, like I'm actually quite familiar with the deck, because I did once play a little bit with the original structure deck that came out like years back, but that was a long time ago. But anyway, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. So starting off with the main deck, 40 cards, playing 3 copies of the new Sacred Fire King Garunix. This card's artwork is amazing. I love it. So this is what this card does. If your monsters that was originally a fire monster is destroyed by battle or a card effect, you can special summon this card from your graveyard or from your hand. I know it has that weird wording where it goes even if not, just ignore that. So basically, as long as it's either in your hand or your graveyard, while another fire monster you have is destroyed, yeah, you could basically literally just summon this card for free. If this card was normal or special summon, you can destroy 1 fire beast, beast warrior, or winged beast from your hand, deck, or face up on the field except itself. And if you do, this card gains attack equal to half of the destroyed monster's attack points. So yeah, it's a pretty good effect. Now, of course, it does only last until the end of the turn, so just, yeah, bear that in mind. But it's a good way just to kind of get over something that's pretty big, Next, 3 copies of High King High Avatar Kirin. I'm sorry, True King High Avatar Kirin. I think I said that wrong. I'm sorry. This is also a card that's really good. Probably considered one of the best in this structure deck. And again, I love the artwork behind this. So during your main phase, if this card is in your hand, quick effect, you can destroy 1 other fire monster in your hand or face up on the field. And if you do, special summon this card. If this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can then special summon 1 Fire King monster from your hand or your graveyard except Kirin. So it literally summons in something else, and then also it gets the additional effect where you can destroy 1 card on the field. So yeah, this card basically has a punishing effect too. So like, kind of like what the True Draco cards do. Like if they're sent to the graveyard, they get additional pop effects. Well, Kirin's basically a monster version of that. So yeah, it's definitely an amazing card. Next up, 3 copies of our new starter, Legendary Fire King Ponix. I just love how derpy this thing kind of looks. But anyway, if your monster that was originally a fire monster is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is normal or special summon, you can then add 1 Fire King spell or trap from your deck to your hand. And we do have some new spells, so this is pretty good for that reason, because like it just helps you like kick things going, well, just get things going in general. So during the standby phase, after this card was destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can add this card back from your graveyard to your hand. So a good way just to, recycle your resources, essentially. All right, so moving on now. Bringing back an old classic, 1 Fire King Avatar Arvada. Now, this one was actually in the original structure deck, if I'm not mistaken. But when a monster effect is activated while this card is on the field, quick effect, you can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy 1 other fire monster in your hand or face up on the field. So this is basically, yeah, your monster negate. And also, if this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 fire beast, beast warrior, or winged beast monster except itself, special summon it. And of course, its effects are negated, but that's usually not an issue, because again, you're mostly going to be using the destruction effects of the Fire Kings, and that's usually, and as soon as they hit the graveyard, that's when their effects kick off. So they don't really have too many on-field effects, in terms of like things that you have to worry about when they're negated. So yeah, like again, you're always gonna have some kind of value out of it. Next up, 2 copies of Fire King Avatar Rangbali. This is also one of the new cards that we just got. So just like Arvada, this one's basically the spell and trap negate. Of course, it doesn't have the special summoning effect, but I mean, that's okay. Again, like to negate spells and traps, that's pretty nice. 1 Fire King Avatar Barong, another classic one that we got here. If a face-up Fire King monsters you control is destroyed by a card effect, except during damage tip, you can special summon this card from your hand. So it's just sort of like just a way to get you an additional body. If you just, you know, lose something, you basically get another to replace it. So, and that's one of the annoying things about Fire Kings, is that they do generally do this gimmick a lot. So yeah, and then once per turn during the next standby phase, after this card was destroyed by card effects and sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 Fire King from your deck to your hand. So, you know, just gets you another search. The only non-Fire King, outside of the other cards I'm playing, is 1 Coach Soldier Wolfbark. It's just a monster reborn for fire monsters. When it's so yeah, like if you just need to go to a quick rank 4 play, this is definitely the card to do it. So yeah, not too bad. All right, so moving on here. As a good going second card, I decided to go in main deck 3 copies of Dogoran. Dogoran's just, you know, it's a kaiju, and, you know, in case I lose the dice roll and my opponent forces me to go second, I at least have a way to, you know, play around, you know, whatever they set up on their board, and so forth. Also playing 3 copies of Drone Lockbird. This was an excellent reprint for the structure deck. I'm actually surprised we didn't get Ash, but, you know, Ash does have plenty of reprints, so it's not the end of the world. But one thing that was also a pretty good reprint, 3 copies of Imperm. Kind of weird to see this as a common, but hey, I'm not complaining. Imperm is Imperm, and it's great for disruption. So yeah, figure, you know, this was a pretty good lineup right here. All right, now moving on to the spells. Starting off with the new one, 3 copies of Fire King Sanctuary. This card's actually pretty crazy. So when this card is activated, you can activate 1 Fire King Island from your deck and place it to your field zone. So pretty nice. And once per turn, if a card in your field zone would be destroyed by a card effect, you can destroy 1 other fire monster in your hand or face up on the field instead. So it's basically like a field barrier, you know, but only for Fire King Island. And also, once per turn, if your opponent special summons a monster or monsters, you can immediately, after this effect resolves, Xyz summon 1 Fire Xyz monster from your extra deck using only fire monsters or Fire King monsters you control. So a great way to get into that new Rank It monster, which we'll get into momentarily. Speaking of which, 3 copies of Fire King Island. You can do one of 2 effects. You can either destroy 1 monster on your hand or your field, and if you do, add 1 Fire King monster from your deck to your hand. This was basically the way to get into cards like Yubel for old school Fire King decks. But I mean, I know Yubel is getting new support, so maybe we might see a variant involving Yubel again, but we'll just have to wait and see. But the second effect is that if you control no monsters, you can special summon 1 Fire Wing Beast from your hand. Of course, I'm surprised it's very specific on the Wing Beast instead of just, you know, Beast and Beast Warrior as well, but it is what it is. But you're most likely going to be using this for the search effect. 3 copies of Fire Formation Tenki, another great reprint simply because it's Rhoda for the archetype for basically any Beast Warrior or Wing Beast based deck. So like, yeah, Tenki is great. Now, of course, it only searches Beast Warriors, I'm sorry. But again, like any deck that can facilitate Beast Warriors in general, and there's like Tri-Brigades for that example, or this one, or even, you know, the actual Fire Formation deck. Like, yeah, they're all Beast Warriors, so like this card's just absurdly generic. And then, of course, another new card, 1 Fire King Skyburn. It's basically Icarus attack, but for Fire Kings. You can target an equal number of Fire King monsters you control, and cards your opponent controls, destroy them. So yeah, like again, it's just Icarus attack essentially. And of course, if a Fire King card you control would be destroyed by card effects, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. So yeah, it just adds added protection. And of course, 1 copy of Circle of the Fire Kings. Target 1 fire monster you control and 1 fire monster in your graveyard. Destroy that monster and then special summon the other one. So yeah, it's a great card. Just to go and get the traps out of the way, playing 3 copies of Torrential Tribute. Good board wipe, and again, just to help you, you know, just blow out your Fire Kings so that way you can get their effects off. And finally, 1 Echelon of the Fire Kings. You can special summon 3 fire monsters, 1 Beast, Beast Warrior, or Wing Beast, 1 each from your hand, deck, and graveyard, but their effects are negated. And then, of course, you can banish this card from your graveyard. This turn, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects when you normal or special summon a Fire King monster. So, yeah, Echelon is not too bad, honestly. I just wanted to try it out, see how I like it, and yeah, it's not that bad. All right. For the extra deck, I actually only have 12 monsters in the extra deck simply because we only got let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 options actually from our extra deck. So yeah, but of course because of that, I'm playing 3 of everything. 3 Grunix Eternity, High Young of the Fire Kings. This card is actually pretty crazy. Requires 2+ level 8 monsters, so fairly generic. If this card is Xyz summoned, you can destroy all other monsters on the field. You can detach 1 material from this card, then target 1 spell and trap on the field, destroy it. And if you do, this card gains 500 attack points permanently, by the way. If this card is destroyed while it has material, you can special summon 1 Fire King monster from your graveyard up to the number of materials this card has. So if it had 2 materials, you could just basically special summon 2 Fire Kings. So yeah, it basically brings back everything you do need. Next up, 3 copies of Coach King Giant Trainer, a card that desperately needed a reprint. Requires 3 level 8 monsters, so I know that seems like a lot, but for this deck it's not that hard. I know this card's crazy in Dark Worlds, but essentially lets you draw 3 cards. Of course, you can't conduct your battle phase, but I mean, if you're going first, that really doesn't matter much. Another classic rank 4, 3 copies of Diamond Dire Wolf. We all know what this does. You detach a material, pop a beast monster, and this can include itself and then 1 card your opponent controls. So yeah, that's pretty nice. And the only link monster that we did get was 3 copies of Hita, which actually isn't too bad. This deck does see a lot of play. Hita is great for the mirror match, and not to mention it does get you some value if she's sent to the graveyard. So yeah, Hita's pretty good. And plus, Ash is also a generic fire monster, so I mean, you could just steal a person's Ash and you can choose to link climb once you upgrade this deck some more, you know? All right, so that's it for the extra deck. For the side deck, which actually this structure deck did include enough cards to even build a nice little side deck, I mean. So starting off with 3 copies of Alpha, a card that I feel like is a little underappreciated at times. I mean, it is actually a really good card. It's big, can bounce back monsters, and of course, keep in mind, a special summoning effect is not technically once per turn, only the bouncing effect is. So yeah, Alpha, Master of the Beast is really good. 3 Dark Hole, you know, not once per turn, and just a good way to force out negates. 3 Herald of the Abyss, which is also a pretty nice reprint. Great against the Pearly matchup. And if you're trying to win by time, or just try to like burn your opponent with enough damage to where you basically can just kill him with 1 shot, 3 copies of Spiritual Fire Art Kurenai, tribute a fire monster and inflict damage equal to that monster's original attack point to your opponent. So yeah, not too bad. And finally, 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. You know, depending on the matchup, you know, it could be pretty nice to have, especially if you're going first. So, you know what, Solemn Judgment, and also a nice little reprint. But anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will catch you guys again next time.